योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचां मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनां पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिरानतोऽस्मि। श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। सो आरंभे कानिचन वाक्यानि तु निश्चयेन संस्कृतेन एव व्याहरामि। सा इयं प्रथा अस्माकम् आचार्याणां रामचन्द्रभट्टवर्याणामपि सा एव प्रथा भवति। आरम्भे संस्कृतेन उद्देश्य कथनं, तदनन्तरं यथामति तत्र भाषायाः प्रयोगम् अहं करोमि। अत्र ऋग्वेदसंहितायां योगशास्त्रविचारः इति अयं विषयः प्रदत्तः। तत्र उपशीर्षकं तु मया योजितं द वैड ऐड एक्सप्लोरेशन इति, जिज्ञासापूर्वकं तस्य विश्लेषणम् इत्येव। अहं तु तद्विषयज्ञः न, यतोहि ऋग्वेदसंहिता अत्यन्तं प्रमुखं तत् साहित्यमस्ति। अतः तद्विषये मदीय मतेः या परिमितिः तस्याम् अहं यथामति विचारं प्रस्तौमि। There is a verse in Vyasa Bhashya to Yoga Sutra which I consider very important. स्वाध्यायात् योगमासीत, योगात् स्वाध्यायम् आमनेत्, स्वाध्याय योग संयुक्त्या परमात्मा प्रकाशते इति। योगसूत्र व्यासभाष्यस्य तज्जपस्तदर्थभावनम् इत्यस्य सूत्रस्य व्याख्यानवेलायाम् अयं श्लोकः उद्ध्रियते व्यासमुनिना। As you can see, there is a very clear indication that practice yoga with the help of swadhyaya and pursue swadhyaya in the light of practice of yoga, and only by that the ultimate consciousness shines forth. Atra yoga shabdasya yogabhyasah chittasthairya praptyartham yat yat parikarma kriyate tat sarvam yoga shabdavachyam bhavati. स्वाध्यायः इति शब्दस्य जपः इति एकः अर्थः, प्रणवादि मन्त्राणां जपः इति एकः अर्थः, अपरः अर्थः भवति मोक्षशास्त्राध्ययनम् इति। अहं तु विनम्रः कश्चित् योगपथिकः, मम योगमार्गप्रवृत्तौ तद्दृढीकरणार्थम् एनम् अवसरं स्वाध्याय अवसरत्वेन विभाव्य अहं प्रवृत्तः भवामि। तदर्थम् एषः श्लोकः उद्धृतः मया। योगस्वाध्याययोः संयुक्तिः अपेक्षिता इति। यदा now when I say I will be speaking about yoga, then what yoga? Because there are so many types and brands and classes of yoga that we see in every corner of the road. We see so many types of yogas. So I should clarify about what yoga I am going to speak. The yoga that I am going to touch upon is the upeya yoga and not the upaya yoga. Even in Yoga Shastra we find two types. There are so many, even in the classical texts we find mantra yoga, laya yoga, hatha yoga, and of course raja yoga. So what I am going to address, so when I say elements of yoga in Ṛgveda-saṃhitā, the yoga that I will be touching upon is the Raja Yoga, which is the Upeya Yoga. Is Raja Yoga really the Upeya Yoga? What is the proof to that? In Hatha Yoga Pradipika, in the very first verse, Swatmarama says, Vibhrajate pronnata Raja Yogam आरोढुमिच्छोहो अधिरोहिणीव। अतः हठयोगस्य उपेयत्वेन राजयोगः उपन्यस्तः। तस्य व्याख्याने अतिस्पष्टतया ज्योत्स्ना व्याख्याता कथयति मंत्रयोग हठयोगादीनाम् अधरभूमीनाम् उत्तरभूमित्वा राजयोगस्य प्रोन्नतत्वम्. So what is Raja Yoga? The Jyotsna commentator clarifies there itself. Sarvavritti nirodha lakshanaha asamprajnata yogaha eva Raja Yogaha. So about this asamprajnata yoga, which is Raja Yoga, I am trying to find some elements of this in Ṛgveda-saṃhitā. When we further analyze this Raja Yoga, which is asamprajnata yoga, at the ultimate level, we understand when we go through the tools and methods that are given in Yoga Shastra, when we decode the content, all the upayas of yoga, whether it is Abhyasa Vairagya or Kriya Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga, we can understand that there are three aspects in Raja Yoga also. Understanding the mind, nature of the mind, manasaha avagamanam, kim nama manaha, manasaha kaha bhumayah. So understanding the mind is done as part of Raja Yoga. Then refining tools or presenting tools to refine and elevate the mind. So that is the second aspect that we find in Raja Yoga. And finally, transcending the mind. So these are the three elements to when we unpack the meaning of the word Raja Yoga, we find these are the three aspects of Raja Yoga. Understanding the nature of the mind, refining the mind, and then transcending the mind to reach the higher objective. So when we again go through the essence of these three steps, what is the core here? The mind. Manaha ityeva kila padam atra sopanatrayepi asti. Ataha manaha Rajayoge mukhyam kim manaha eva. Manaha karanam, manaha upakaranam. Mind is an instrument. So that is the approach, that is the essence of Raja Yoga. So in slowly exploring the tools of or insights of yoga in Ṛgveda-saṃhitā, mind as a tool, so that point comes to the fore. So when we go to the Upanishadic literature, we find a very clear mention of the mind being used as a tool to higher purposes. Manasaivedam aptavyam nehananasti kinchana manasaivanudrashtavyam brihadaranyake drishyate tu agriyaya buddhya. Again, these are the Upanishadic references which say mind as a tool, manasa, manasa, manasa. And finally in Shankara Bhashya Bhagavad Gita we find Shastracharya Upadesha Samskritam Manaha Atmadarshane Karanam. So Manasaha Karanatvam, the instrument of the instrumentality of mind. So that is the thing which emerges. So this gave me the clue. This gave me the hint. Actually, initially I was wondering as to where I should start exploring the Ṛgveda-saṃhitā, because you know that in Ṛgveda-saṃhitā there are more than 10,000 mantras. So where should I start the exploration for understanding the elements of yoga? This gave me the hint, manasa. So what are the expressions in yoga or in the Ṛgveda-saṃhitā with the word manasa? Where do we find the expression manasa? And based on that, do we find any hint about yoga? Manashabdasya tritiya vibhakyanta prayogaha yoga Ṛgveda-saṃhitāyam kutra kutra bhavati. Tasya adhyayanena tasya nishpīdane athava tataha saragrahanartham yadi prayatnah kriyate tataha yoga shastra vicharaha yatohi manasaha karanatvam. Nama tritiya vibhakti sarvadapi karanarthe इति न प्राधान्येन करणार्थे भवति. अतः अयं क्रमः मया आदृतः. So manasa is the tool. In Ṛgveda mantras I started looking for the term manasa. When normally when people speak about exploring or the Vedic background of especially the Rgvedic origins of yoga, the trodden path, the taken path, the exhausted route is They will quote Yunjate, Mana Uta Yunjate, Dhiyaha. This is a Vedic mantra from the Panchama Mandala, which is quoted. See, joining the minds of the Ritviks. That is one commonly quoted reference. And then in the 10th Mandala, there is the Keshin Sukta, where 4 rishis, they are the mantra drashtas. Jutihi, Vata Jutihi, Vipra Jutihi, Vishanakaha. All these rishis, they express their yogic ideas in that sukta. So whenever people speak about Rigveda and yoga, this sukta is quoted. Or Yunjate, Mana Uta Yunjate, Dhiyaha is quoted. Or the very expression yoga is searched. So how many times the term yoga appears, what are the meanings? That is the route normally taken. But I am trying to take a new route, that is Manasa. That route. So, Manasa Prayogaha ṛgveda-saṃhitā. Where do we find, and are there yogic insights based on that? So, even in that Manasa, when we see the Manasa Prayogaha, what are the questions that I ask? My research questions. For any research, we should frame the right kind of questions. So, the questions that I framed for myself is, what are the places of usage of the term Manasa, expression Manasa? Those Manasa expressions, do they throw any light on understanding the nature of the mind? Do they present tools on refining the mind or elevating the mind? Using the expression Manasa, are there places where transcending the mind and reaching the higher goal than the mind, are they presented? So these are the 4 questions that I put for myself while exploring the term Manasa in Rigveda. So interestingly, what I found was, in 109 places, Manasa is being used. So in the table you can see that in all the 10 mandalas, Manasa Tritiya Vibhaktiyanta Prayogaha Asmabihi Upalakshitum Shakyate. Right from the first mandala to the 10th mandala. So which means 109 mantras, they express Manasa, which gives us a good data to analyze. We cannot conclude anything based on meager data. If the data is sufficient, only then analysis is possible. So when we see 109 occurrences of the term Manasa, then it gave me a little confidence that the route taken might guide me to the right goal. Yes. And then as we see, in the first mandala, the term Manasa is used for 26 times. And in the last mandala, 32 times. So which are the highest occurrences of the term? Upakrama upasamharayoho ekavakyata iti vadanti. Tena karanena anenapi hetuna vayam vaktum shaknumaha ṛgveda-saṃhitā manasshāstramiti. Yatohi tatra adhikyena manashabdasya prayogaha tritiya vibhaktau asmavihi drishyate iti. Adau ante cha yad asti iti. Evam further going, when we refine this, can all the 109 expressions be taken? We have to again do analysis. When we see Sayana Bhashya, 2 meanings are given to the word Manasa. Manasa stotrena, Manasa antahkaranena. The word Manaha is read by Sayanacharya in 5 occasions of the 109 occurrences. Stotram ityartha, manashabdasyaiva stotram ityartha. Ataha Manasa stotrena ityartha. Apareshu, in other 104 places, we see Manasa antahkaranena. So naturally, those 5 occurrences are out of contention. So our focus narrows down to 104 occurrences of the term. Even there, we have to see that there are 2 ways of expressing Manasa. Manashabdaha kriyapadena saha. Manashabdaha kriyapadena saha, parantu visheshana vishishtataya. Udaharanartham, only Manashabdaha. Manasa tatakshatuhu, Manasa apashyam, Manasa avijanan, Manasa samhijagme. In all these expressions, only the term Manasa is there. In other mantras like Sadhrichinena Manasa, Devena Manasa, Adrupyata Manasa, Kamapreneva Manasa, Atra Savisheshanaka Manasa Prayogaha Asmavihi Upalabdhum Shakyate. Ubhayamapi Avashyakam. Both are needed for analysis because the Rgvedic mantras, what are the expressions, what are the mantras, what are the activities, what are the actions that were envisaged to be done only through the mind, what are the mental activities. So, kevalam manasa shabda prayogaha tatra asmakam margam nirdishati. Savisheshanaka manasa, so what are the qualities of the mind? Adrupyata manasa, sadhrichinena manasa. So, qualities of the mind can be understood by the Savisheshanaka manasa prayogaha. So, that is one small analysis. And even in those 104 occurrences, we have to refine our focus. In those mantras, in 104 occurrences, mind of the gods is spoken and mind of the Anushtata is also mentioned. So, for example, Idato Agne Manasa in Dvitiya Mandala, which means Asmad Anugrahayuktena Manasa. Oh Agni, please be present in this yaga with a mind to bless us. So, this is the mind of the Devata. And the mind of the Anushtata is also spoken of in the Vedic expression where we see Kenavate Manasa Dashema. There, He Agne, Tasya Sarvasya Sadhana Bhutam Manaha Eva Asmakam Durlabham Iti. Tava Upagamana Dyanurupam Manaha Asmakam Na Utpadyate Ityarthaha. So here the Anushtata laments that I am unable to focus on your form, O Agni. So we can see that the mind of the gods is spoken of and the mind of the Anushtata, the Ritvik, Yajamana, Advaryu is spoken of. So we are all sadhakas. So rather than thinking about the mind of the gods, let us think about the mind of the Anushtatas. So our focus is again refined on the mind of the Anushtata. Around 52 of the 104 expressions, 52 expressions of Manasa, Savisheshanaka, Avisheshanaka, both, they speak about the mind of the Anushtata. So from the 109 expressions, we have come down to 52 expressions on Manasa. I will not go any further in this route. Let me get into the content now directly. So, even in analyzing these 52 expressions, I just have a mention here. There was a mention about the various commentaries. So, Sayana Bhashya, Arabindo's Bhashya, all those discussions happened. My exploration into these Manasa expressions are purely and only based on Sayanacharya Bhashya. Because there is a normal accusation or a tagging of Sayanacharya's commentary as Adhiyajnartha Vimarshaha or Karmapara Vimarsha. But my experience with Sayana Bhashya is, it is more yogic than most commentaries, both in English and Sanskrita. Because why I say this is the Taittiriya Upanishad, based on my experience on Taittiriya Upanishad. For Taittiriya Upanishad, people generally study the commentary of Acharyas like Shankara or Rangaramanuja or others or Madhvacharya even. But people don't focus on Sayanacharya's commentary. In Sayanacharya's commentary to Taittiriya Upanishad, you find wonderful yogic insights. The very first mantra, Shanno Mitrasham Varunaha, Sayanacharya gives the Vinyoga of the mantra as Yogantarayanam Nivrityartham Japyaha Mantraha. Shanno Mitrasham Varunaha, Vyadhisthana Samshaya Pramada Alasya. To overcome all these, what is the mantra japa? Shanno Mitrasham Varunaha. Such yogic Vinyoga of the mantras you find in Sayana Bhashya. And when we move to Brahmanandavalli also, we find the analysis of Manomaya and Vijnanamaya Kosha based on Trigunas. So what are the guna combination of Manomaya Kosha and what is the guna combination of Vijnanamaya Kosha? That is done only by Sayanacharya in his commentary to Taittiriya Upanishad. And when we move to the Yajniki Upanishad, that is Mahanarayana Upanishad, there are further more yogic insights. See, for pranayama, there are 3 types of mantras he gives, apart from the Sashiraska, the Gayatri mantra. And then there are mantras like Angushthamatra Purushaha, for which he connects that mantra with Chitta Vritti and other things. So, based on these experiences of mine with Sayanacharya's Taittiriya Bhashya, I started out exploring the Rigveda with the confidence that I will certainly get yogic insights from Sayana Bhashya. in Ṛgveda-saṃhitā. In a way, this gives us a topic for research. Sayanacharya's contribution to yoga or the Viniyoga of mantras, yogic mantras, Vedic mantras for yogic kriyas. That we find only in Sayana Bhashya, which is a untouched chapter in the history of yoga. Someone can take up this work. Now, with this reference, let us go into the Manasa expressions on Anushtatas. Again, when we started out, we gave ourselves 3 topics. That is, understanding the mind, understanding the nature of the mind of a sadhaka, tools for refining the mind of a sadhaka, and then references to transcend the mind. Now let us take up the first theme. So we see that in these 52 expressions, Rigveda speaks about vikshiptam manaha and manasaha durgrahyatvam, durnigrahatvam. We see that. And then for refining the mind, so many yoga parikarmas that we find in the Yoga Sutras, they have already been mentioned in Ṛgveda-saṃhitā. And then the process of dhyana is also beautifully coupled with yaga prakriya in Ṛgveda-saṃhitā. And finally, by using the dhyana prakriya, what is the goal that is reached? It is Paramatma or Atma or various other Devata darshanas. So, this is the pratigna that we see, that regarding all these aspects of Raja Yoga, we find ample references in Ṛgveda-saṃhitā. Now let us take up the first aspect, understanding the nature of mind. The references in Ṛgveda-saṃhitā based on this. The important thing is, before starting out to find the solution, it is important to understand the problem. Without knowing or without figuring out what the problem is, if someone tries to prescribe or suggest solutions, will it be appropriate? Certainly not. So, we find a very systematic approach here, that the Ṛgvedic seers or rishis were very much aware of the problems of the mind. So, manasaha samasyaha kaha tad vishaye Ṛgvede सम्यक् उत्तमाः तत्र उत्तमानि उद्धरणानि अस्माभिः प्राप्तुं शक्यन्ते. योगशास्त्रेपि चतुर्व्यूहव्यवस्था अस्ति. हेयं हेयहेतुः हानम् उपायः इति. प्रथमं हेयस्य ज्ञानम् आवश्यकं. किं परित्यक्तव्यं, का समस्या, समस्यायाः कारणं किं, हेयहेतुः, हानं प्राप्तव्यं स्थानं किं, हानोपायः, तदर्थं कानि उपकरणानि इत्येवं चतुर्व्यूहव्यवस्था अस्ति. चतुर्व्यूहव्यवस्थायाम् आरम्भे हेयं, हेयस्य परिज्ञानं, नाम इदं मनः एव समस्यायाः कारणम्, अतः इदं मनः कीदृशम् इति योगमन्त्राः, वेदमन्त्राः सन्ति. तत् पश्यामः, तान् पश्यामः. So these mantras will present ideas about vikshiptam, aparishkritam, asamskritam manah. So the problem here, the mind. In first mandala we find kenavate manasa dashema. I already mentioned this. Tasya sarvasya sadhana bhutam manaha asmakam durlabham. Tava upagamana dyanurupam manaha asmakam na utpadyate. To understand that your nature, O Agni Devata, our mind is not getting focused. So this is the lament of an Anushtata, that his mind is not getting focused. And then even in the next reference, it is much more refined. Sannadho manasa charami. In the first mandala, 164th sukta, we find in Sayana's commentary, we see what is sannadhaha, avidya kama karma bhihi samyak abaddhaha, indriya paravashaha, bhavana asahishnuna vikshiptena chetasa samsare sancharami. So here all the yogic antarayas and the kleshas have been mentioned, because we see in Yoga Sutra avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, all those are the kleshas which trouble a person, which are bottlenecks to progress. So avidya kama karma bihi, and then indriya paravashatvam, being distracted, running behind the senses. So all those ideas we find in the this Rgvedic mantra. Bhavana asahishnuna is a very important expression. The mind is unable to visualize anything. So ability to visualize abstract or concrete things only in the mind. The mind is not capable. So here the nature of the mind to get distracted is very clearly mentioned in this mantra. Then we see in the same way, adevena manasa, devan amanyamanena manasa. More than this, we find asura vritti vishishtena manasa. So my mind, the Anushtata again says, my mind is engulfed with the asura pravritti. When we see this asura vritti, immediately we are reminded of Bhagavad Gita, where we find Daivasura Sampad Vibhaga. So, what are kama yesh, all those kama, krodhas tatha, lobhas tasmad, etatrayam teje. We find all those expressions. So, that is asura vritti. When we go deeper into the Yoga Sutra commentaries, Bhoja, the commentator says, what is asura manaha? He says, rajasa atyantam chalam kshiptam daityanam. Tamasa nidradimat mudham rakshasana. So the kshipta and the vikshipta state of mind is asura vritti yuktam manaha. So again we find references to the distracted, confused, unrefined mind. Then pakatra manasa, vishishta jnana rahitena manasa, pakaha prichhami manasa avijanan, pakaha apakvamatihi prashnam karomi asamskritena manasa atigahanam tattvam visheshena jnatum ashaknuvan. In Asyavamiya Sutta we find this. So what is an asamskrita manaha? What is a vishishta jnana rahita manaha? A mind which is not refined by swadhyaya. So we find that the yoga antarayas or the nature of the mind being beautifully captured here, be it unrefined mind with avidya, kama, indriya paravashata, or asura vritti with kshipta, vikshipta states, and lack of swadhyaya. So these Rigvedic references clearly show a very good understanding of the state of the mind. And the second aspect about understanding the mind is, okay, can we immediately get hold of this mind and refine it? When we see that they have a very clear understanding, a practical understanding of the mind, that it is not easily graspable. It will not come to the hold quickly. Towards that we find expressions in Rigveda that manasa javishtaha, manasa bhuranyam. All these are in 4th mandala, which says the mind is faster. Manovegena dantumichan, manasapi vegavattamam. The speed of the mind is very well known to very well known in these Rigvedic expressions. So, when again regarding the expression manasa, we find only 2 references. There are other references in Rigveda which speak about the speed of the mind. Manojavaha, manojavebihi, manojavasa. All these are the expressions where in Rigveda we find the mind is stated as very fast, which indicates durnigrahatvam, because it reflects the Arjuna's statement that chanchalam hi manah, the chanchalatva of the mind is expressed. So the mind is afflicted with kshipta, vikshipta, avidya, kama, all those things, and that mind is also extremely fickle and not easy to control. So this basic fundamental understanding of yoga is clearly there in the Rigvedic mantras. This is part 1. Then we go to the second aspect. Okay, now in our Shastra Patha, it is our experience that we understand the Purva Paksha very well. When it comes to Siddhanta, the Siddhanta statements become very difficult for us. So similarly, we find that the mind has been understood very well. The problems of the mind has been understood very well. Have the Rigvedic mantras any guidance for us, or is there indications to refine mind also? The second point is also worth exploring. What are the tools in the Ṛgveda-saṃhitā, indications towards refining the mind? These are called by Vyasa in Yoga Sutra as Yoga Parikarma. A special expression is used by Vyasa to indicate this parikarma, to refine the mind. Those activities that are done to refine the mind and take it to the state of ekagrata. When these parikarmas are done, Like especially the technical term parikarma applies to the tools beginning with Maitri Karuna Mudidopekshanam Sukadukha. Beginning from that, Yathabhimata Dhyana, the set of 7 tools are given. They are especially called as parikarma. Generally, to generalize that, all tools of yoga which help to refine the mind and take it to the state of ekagrata from chitta, mudha and vikshipta can be called as parikarmas. So what are the yoga parikarmas and indications regarding to that in Ṛgveda-saṃhitā? What are the tools, what are the mantras that we find in that regard? So many mantras are there, only a few. Sthali pulakanyayena kechana mantraha kaschana richaha udriyante. Manuhu manasa yeje, hrida manasa. These are mantras to which Sayanacharya says, Shraddha yukte na manasa. Again, so Shraddha is a tool for the mind, a quality of the mind, to refine the mind. Pakena manasa, pakena, shuddhena, pakvena manasa, charantam vartamanam. What is the pakvam manaha? Satyavadinam. So, what is mind which is pakva or paka? A mind which is mature with satya. And then manasa aramatihi, in 8th mandala we find bhaktya paryaptastutihi. Bhaktihi is meant shraddha, satyam, bhaktihi. In Yoga Shastra, Patanjali we find Ishvara pranidhanam. So that pranidhanam aspect. And much more higher pranidhanam is mentioned in the next mantra. Hridis prusho manasa vachyamanaha. In the 10th mandala. Hridaye sprishantaha. Stutyasya priyabhutaha. Sattvodriktena manasa vachyamanaha. So, what kind of mantras, utterances will touch the divinity? Hridis prusho manasa. With a mind in which sattva is dominating, with such a mind when prayers are uttered, it will touch the heart of the upasya devata. So it's a very rare expression that we find. So this is again, what is the refinement of bhakti? It is not mere lower bhakti. When a person achieves the state of sattva dominance and then does bhakti, that is hridis prusho manasa. And then we can go on like this. Hrida pashyanti manasa manishinaha. In 10th mandala we see, what is hrida pashyanti? Hridi niruddhena manasa. Hridsthena antarmukhena manasa pashyanti jananti. Tannama, earlier Indriya Paravasha was mentioned. Now Hridi Niruddha, the mind is fixed and turned inwards, which indicates Pratyahara and Antarmukhatva. Because even Pratyahara is defined in Yoga Sutra as not mere stopping of the senses. Chitta Anukaranam is Pratyahara. So Pratyahara is a mental activity rather than the activity of the senses. So Antarmukhena Manasa. So such tools are given. And finally, Devadricha Manasa. Devan Anchata Devata Parayanena Antahkaranena Yuktaha San Charupuroda Shadina Paricharami. So initially Shraddha was mentioned. Shraddha is one of the highest tools of yoga because as Upaya Pratyaya, Shraddha, Virya, Smriti, Samadhi, Prajna, Purvaka, Itaresham. At the top of all the tools, Shraddha is given. Hence, there are so many mantras which speak about Shraddha Yuktena Manasa. I have just mentioned only 2. And then we see Satya, which is part of Niyama. And then we saw about Bhakti, Pranidhanam. Ishvara Pranidhanam has been given a lot of importance in Yoga Sutra. This is the only tool in yoga, only Upakarana in yoga which is mentioned thrice. In the first chapter you have Ishvara Pranidhanam and a set of host of sutras on Ishvara. Then as part of Kriya Yoga you find Ishvara Pranidhanam. Again as part of Ashtanga Yoga you find Ishvara Pranidhanam. So following this Rgvedic tenet of importance of Ishvara Pranidhanam, we find Yoga Sutra also giving a lot of importance to that. So, and then finally we see Antarmukhena, focusing the mind inwards. By all these, what is said to be reached is Ekagrata. When we see Devata Parayanena, one should be reminded about the Bhagavad Gita statement, Tadbuddhayaha, Tadatmanaha, Tannishtaha, Tatparayanaha, Devata Parayanena, Gacchantya Punaravrittim, which means Ekagrata. Only the Upasya Devata is in the mind. The mind is entirely focused on that. Nothing else is there. As even in Yoga Sutra we find that by Maitri Karuna etc., the mind which has attained the state of Ekagra becomes or qualifies to do dhyana and move towards the state of Samadhi. So these Yoga Parikarmas beginning from Shraddha till attaining the state of Ekagrata have been amply referred in Ṛgveda-saṃhitā. Then transcending the mind, we come to the third step. So initially I am just reminding, initially we spoke about understanding the mind, refining the mind, and then transcending the mind and reaching a higher goal. So what are the references or what are all the tools to transcend the mind that we can find in, or methods to transcend the mind in Ṛgveda-saṃhitā? I need to quote only one mantra in this, which it presents the sum and substance of the method. Yaga prakriya eva. Yaga prakriya eva yoga prakriya, which helps to transcend the mind. That brings it together dhyana and samadhi. This mantra, 10th mandala, it's a very important mantra. Utasvena kratuna samvadeta shreyamsam daksham manasa jagrubhya. I would like to apologize here to Ganapati Variyaha Atra, because I am uttering these mantras without the swara samskara. I just looked at these mantras only as Shastra and I didn't go into it as the mantra prayoga drishtya mayana avalokitam. Ataha swara परिधम मया न उच्यते, केवलं मन्त्राः तदर्थः एव अत्र मया विमृश्यते, अतः क्षन्तव्यः मम अपराधः। अत्र अयं मन्त्रः अत्यन्तं विशिष्टः, ध्यानप्रक्रियां विवृणोति। अत्र सायणभाष्यमपि अत्यन्तं विशिष्टमस्ति। उतापि च स्वेन आत्मीयेन क्रतुना प्रज्ञानेन मनसा इत्यर्थः संवदेत, मनसा संवदेत। मनसा संवदेत इत्यस्य कः अर्थः? संवादः अत्र समाध्यानम्. This is a very important expression. Sayanacharya says samvada is not conversation, this is samadhyanam. Samadhyanam uchyate. What is samadhyanam? What is the process of samadhyanam? It is further explained. Svavachanani vyachaste हविर्गृहीत्वा वषट्करिष्यन् विश्वान् देवान् मनसा ध्यायेदित्यर्थः. This is samadhyanam. So उतस्वेन क्रतुना संवदेत हविः गृहीत्वा मनसा समाध्यानं कुर्यात्. One should be, I am very curious or very astonished by this expression samadhyana, because it brings two terminologies of yoga together, samadhi and dhyana. Samadhi and dhyana is brought together and expressed by Sayanacharya as samadhyana. So what is so special about samadhyana is it incorporates yaga also. Normal dhyana is sitting and closing in the eyes and sitting in one corner, whereas this is samadhyana where one is actively involved in the yaga prakriya, but his mind is entirely focused on the upasya devata. So if we have to say about the yoga of the Rigveda, it is a samadhyana. Samadhyana is the take home from this kind of exploration that I have done. So samadhyana rupaha yogaha eva Rigvede vartate, which incorporates yaga prakriya also. So then what happens by this samadhyana? Vishvesham devanam yaganantaram. With such a mental activity and preparation, if a person does the yaga, what happens? Tat prasadat shreyamsam daksham. So tat prasadat shreyamsam adishayena prashasyam atmanam daksham pravriddham tannama vyaptam sarvavyapinam manasa dhyana sadhanena jagrubhyat grinhiyat. So the point is, when such samadhyana as per the Rigveda is done, then the gods, Vishve Devaha, it is not one Deva, it is Vishve Devaha who are addressed in this Rig. So all the divinities, or which is Paramatma himself, he will reveal Tat Prasadat Manasa Dhyana Sadhanena Jagrubhyat Atma Sakshatkaro Bhavati Ityartha. So When we see these expressions as dhyanam and prasada, I am clearly reminded of its consonance with the Yoga Sutra where Nirvichara Vaisharadhye Adhyatma Prasadaha. The next sutra is Ritambhara Tatra Prajna. Prasadaha. Here also you find Prasadaha, Prasada of the Vishwe Devas, and what will it lead? To the Ritam, the knowledge of Ritam, the unchanging reality, Kutastha Nityaha Atma, Tasya Jnanam Sambhavati. Ataha Yat Nirvichara Samadhi Ritambhara Prajnadikam Agre Patanjali Yoga Sutreshu Upalabhyate Tasya Sarvasyapi Moolabhuta Vicharaha Asmin Mantre Yaga Prakriya Sametataya Atra Uchyate iti Avadhanarham. Agrepi Asya Agrima Mantre api Navedaso Amritanam Abhuma. We will attain immortality. What is the utility of doing such Yaga Prakriya? With Samadhyana, the next mantra says Amritanam Devanam Navedasaha Swarupato Jnataraha Bhavamaha Ityashasmahe. Mumukshutvam, to realize or to attain this immortality, this yaga is being done. So very clear yaga prakriya to transcend the mind has been very clearly mentioned. This is not the only occurrence regarding using samadhyana to reach the higher or transcend the mind. Sadrichinena manasa vivenam antarhrida manasa. In bhashya to this you find the similar thoughts being expressed by Sayanacharya. Now, what we already saw that it is the Atma Tattva, which is the Shreyamsa and Daksha, which is realized by Atma, which is realized by the Yaganushtata. Apart from this, other Devatas are also visualized in the state of Samadhi. To that, there are so many references in Ṛgveda-saṃhitā. Manasa svebhi rakshabhihi apashyam. These are very interesting references. Mitra varunayoho hiranmayam rupam. Yajna sadaneshu apashyema. We visualize the form of Mitra and Varuna in the Yajna Vedika. How do we see? Not only by our eyes. Manasa kena sadhanena taduchyate manasa tvad asaktena chetasa pashyam. Manasa sakshatkaraha. Pashyan manye manasa chakshasa tat. Tan devan pranatmana sarvatra pramanan chakshasa darshana hetuna manasa pashyan janan manye taneva vishwasrashtrun devan staumi. So the pranatma devatas, Mitra Varuna, all these have been, the sakshatkara of all these are done in the yajna sadhana. It is not merely offering something into the fire. Yaga is coupled with this process called samadhyana. Only then it is real yaga, or else it is mere some kind of an activity. And then the next mantra, I was amazed to see this next mantra, Advaryubhir Manasa Samvidana. Here, in the process of creating the Soma Rasa, the commentators say, the Sayanacharya says, He apaha ayatihi asmat yajnam pratyagachatihi advaryubhihi manasa antahkaranena samvidanaha sambhashamanaha yaha nama yasam apam prayogena somarasaha nirmiyate taha advaryubhis saha manasa vartalapam kurvanti. Nama advaryavaha tatra dhyanam kurvantaha abdevatabhis saha vartalapam kurvanti sambhashanam kurvanti iti sakshat Ṛgveda mantre eva vyavahara. Iyam samadhi sthitihi khalu yatra devatanam sakshatkaraha siddhadarshanam इत्यादि यत्र अस्माभिः योगसूत्रेपि अवलोक्यते एवम् एकः सुपर्णः तं पाकेन मनसा पश्यमन्तितः. दिस् इस् अ वेरी सिग्निफिकेण्ट् एक्स्प्रेशन्. सुपर्णः पक्षवान् निराधार संचारी. हू इस् दट् निराधार संचारी? प्राणवायुः परमात्मा वा. तं देवम् उपासकः अहं पाकेन परिपक्वज्ञानेन मनसा अपश्यम्. Where do I see this devata? Where do I see this prana devata or paramatma? Antitaha, antike, samipe. What is samipa? Swahridaye apashyam. So the realization of the paramatma or prana devata happens in the mind of the sadhaka or the anushtaka, which means yaga prakriya again naturally leads to transcending the mind essentially. And I will end with one final reference. Manasa, the same. I have done all these points, presented all these points, staying within the limits of the expression manasa. I have not gone beyond that. Only with the expression manasa, we can unearth so many interesting, important, significant insights about yoga. And finally, manasa veda sakshatkaraha api bhavati. का सा प्रक्रिया इत्यस्यापि उल्लेखः अस्मिन् मन्त्रे वर्तते. अयं मन्त्रः यजुर्वेदे अपि दृश्यते. पतंगो वाचं मनसा बिभर्ति तां गन्धर्वो वदद्गर्भे अन्तः. अत एव सस्वरं वदामि, यजुर्वेद संस्कार एव अस्ति इति कारणेन. ऋतस्य पदे कवयो निपान्ति. अस्य भाष्यमपि पुनः अवलोकनीयं. पतंगः सूर्यः वाचं त्रयीरूपां मनसा प्रज्ञया बिभर्ति. सूर्ये ऋगादि त्रय्याः ज्ञानं वर्तते. तदस्माभिः कथं प्राप्तुं शक्यते? अनुष्ठात्र उपासकेन कथं प्राप्तुं शक्यते? प्रज्ञया प्राप्तुं शक्यते. प्रज्ञया पतंगः वाचं बिभर्ति. अतः यः तत् प्रज्ञावान् सः पतंगात् त्रयीरूपां वाचं प्राप्तुम् अर्हति इति मन्त्रस्य अर्थः. पुनश्च तत्रैव मन्त्रः न समाप्तः. तां गन्धर्वो अवदद्गर्भे अन्तः. गन्धर्वः को नाम गन्धर्वः? गां दधाति इति गन्धर्वः इति सायणाचार्यैः तत्र उक्तं. गां नाम वाचं यः बिभर्ति प्राणः, प्राणेन विना वाक् न प्रवर्तते. मारुतस्तु उरसि चरन् मन्द्रं जनयति स्वरम् इत्युक्तक्रमेण तत्र प्राणः एव अत्र गन्धर्वः. अतः किं भवति? प्रायः अनन्तरं तां ऋषयः अध्यापनेन नितरां रक्षन्ति इति प्रक्रिया. अतः एवं प्रक्रिया अस्ति वेदसाक्षात्करणे. अधुनापि ऋषयः भवितुमर्हन्ति यदि एतत् सूत्रम् अस्मिन् मन्त्रे यत् सूत्रं दृश्यते तस्य अनुसरणेन. सूर्योपासनं तेन प्रज्ञाप्राप्तिः. सूर्योपासनं नाम सूर्यगतस्य परमात्मनः साक्षात्कारः अथवा तस्य जपः, तदर्थभावनं. गायत्री मन्त्रः एव तत्र अस्माकं सोपानं वर्तते. सूर्योपासनं, ततः प्रज्ञाप्राप्तिः. का प्रज्ञा? ऋतंभरा प्रज्ञा. तेन सा ऋतंभरा प्रज्ञा किं करोति? गन्धर्वं प्रेरयति, नाम शरीरस्थं प्राणं प्रेरयति. तेन वेदोच्चारणं, वेदस्य आविर्भावः भवति. आविर्भूतस्य वेदस्य ऋषयः पदे कवयो निपान्ति. ते रक्षन्ति. ऋषयः येषां मुखात् वेदः निस्सरति अध्ययन अध्यापन परम्परया तस्यैव वेदस्य परिरक्षणं भवति. एवं वेदस्य आविष्करणादारभ्य वेदस्य परिरक्षणम्, अग्रे अध्ययन अध्यापन परम्परायां कथं वेदस्य प्रसारः इति पर्यन्तमपि अस्माभिः अत्र ऋग्वेदे अत्र उल्लेखः अस्माभिः लब्धुं शक्यः. अतः परमोत्कृष्ट मनसः स्थितिः सर्वमपि अस्माभिः ऋग्वेदसंहितायामेव उपलब्धुं शक्यते. अग्रे यानि योगशास्त्रनाम्ना प्रवृत्तानि तानि सर्वाणि तस्यैव अनाद्यनन्तस्य विचारस्य विवरणभूतानि इति मात्रं कथयितुं शक्यते. अन्तिमम् इदं निवेदनम् उक्त्वा अहं समापयामि. स्थालीपुलाकन्यायेन मनसा इति मनश्शब्दस्य तृतीया विभक्त्यन्तरूपमेव मया गृहीतं. तस्य अन्वेषणं मया कृतं. तावता इमे एतावन्तः विचाराः मया तत्र लब्धाः. एवमेव मनस्सम्बद्धानि अनेकानि पदानि सन्ति ऋग्वेदसंहितायां. धीः, धीरः, श्रद्धा, मनीषा, बुद्धिः, हृत्, हृदयं, धिषणा, आकूतिः, संकल्पः, मनश्शब्दस्य इतराः विभक्तयः, कामः, क्रोधः इत्येवम् अनेकानि पदानि अस्मान् निरीक्षन्ते. आगत्य आविष्कुर्वन्तु, ततः नूतनान् विचारान् सङ्गृह्णन्तु इति अस्माकं प्रतीक्षां कुर्वन्ति. अतः टिप् आफ् द ऐस्बर्ग् इति यद् उच्यते तावदेव मया अवलोकितम्. एवम् अनेके विचाराः ऋग्वेदात्, यथा साररूपेण वक्तव्यं चेत् समाध्यानम् इति काचित् प्रक्रिया मनसा इति शब्दप्रयोगेण मया गृहीता. एवम् अनेके विचाराः सन्ति ऋग्वेदात् अस्माभिः योगशास्त्रसम्बद्धतया मनश्शास्त्र. यतोहि अधुनातनकाले स्ट्रेस्, सैकोसोमेटिक् डिसार्डर् इत्यादि सर्वम् उच्यते. तस्य सर्वस्यापि परिहारः यागः एव. योगयुक्तः यागः एव इति अवगन्तुम् अस्माभिः शक्यते एतेषां मन्त्राणां दर्शनेन। तस्मात् इदानीं योगनाम्ना यत् प्रवर्तते, यस्य अध्ययनं यस्य गवेषणं प्रवर्तते, तत् सर्वमपि उपरिप्लवम् इत्येव भाति। यदा वयं तलस्पर्शितया एतान् विचारान् वयम् आविष्कृत्य तत्र प्रयोगमपि कारयामः, तदा वास्तविकः वैदिकः श्रौतः त्रयीमयः योगः अनुष्ठितो भवति, येन च सर्वेषां श्रेयःपरम्परा सिद्ध्येदिति। इदं कार्यम् अधुना अवश्यमेव संस्कृताध्येतृभिः, वेदाध्येतृभिः, शास्त्राध्येतृभिः कर्तव्यं। किमर्थमिति चेत् रूट्स् ऑफ योगा इति पुस्तकं प्रकाशितम् इन् 2017। जेम्स् मैलिन्सन, मार्क् सिंगल्टन् इत्ये जनाः ते योगस्य वेदमूलत्वमेव नास्ति इति निरूपयितुं बद्धपरिकराः पुस्तकानि प्रकाशयन्तः सन्ति। दिस् हस् आल्रेडी बिकम् अ बेस्ट सेलर्। तो यदि शास्त्राध्येतारः वेदाध्येतारः अधुना वयम् अधीत्य एतद्विषये विचारप्रकटनं न कुर्यामः तर्हि मिथ्यावचनानि पुनः पुनः आवर्त्यमानानि कदाचित् मनसि सत्यत्वेन प्रतिष्ठितानि भवन्ति। अतः अस्माकं सर्वेषां कर्तव्यमस्ति। डेविड फ्राली प्रमुखाः वेदिक योगा इत्यादि वदन्ति, तत्रापि तेषां when you see the book Vedic Yoga by David Frawley, what you find is his interpretations, with due respects, is based only on the interpretation of Sri Aurobindo and nothing beyond. सायणाचार्याणां भाष्यं बहूनां षडङ्गविधां भाष्याणि सन्ति। ततः अनेके विचाराः, अनर्घविचाराः तत्र उद्धर्तुं शक्याः। अतः मिथ्याविचाराणाम् अपर्याप्तविचाराणां योगशास्त्रस्य मूलस्य विषये, वेदमूलत्वस्य विषये तत्सर्वम् अवश्यमेव तिरस्कर्तव्यं, निराकरणीयं। तदर्थम् अवश्यं प्रयत्नः विधेयः। यदि अस्यां दिशि कार्यं कृतं तर्हि गवेषणपुस्तकानि यानि सन्ति, it has to be converted into the curriculum, it has to be brought into the curriculum. First research has to happen. If someone says research has already happened, then the material that has been arrived through research should enter into the curriculum. Only then we can establish the real Vaidika Yoga. Iti etavanmatram विनिवेदयामि। आभिर्गीर्भिर्यदतो न ऊनमाप्याजय हरिवो वर्धमानः यदा स्तोतृभ्यो महिगोत्रार्जासि भूजिष्ठभाजो अधते स्याम ब्रह्म प्रावादिष्म तन्नो माहासीत्। ओम शांति शांति शांति।